Hello, Tom. It's always great, and I always look forward to this time. And thank you for making the time.
Judith, it is my pleasure. I look forward to it all week. Thank you for the opportunity. Look forward to seeing where this conversation leads.
Absolutely. So, we both talked about a very interesting thing that happened to both of us at different points in time, and it helped us discover something deeper.
So many times the narrative of life is like a string of pearls, that you have events that can be large or small that get strung together and you start discerning patterns in the strand. And so when you look back and you see the value of the strand of events that etch into your memory, it really doesn't matter so much whether they were large or small at the time, because the impact of small events can last a lifetime. So we had one of those small events today, but small only in the context of all of life, because today it was big. While I'm in a staff meeting, my wife's car dies. We happen to be in a new community where we really don't know very many people. Like, we really know nobody that we could call for help. Now, yeah, we've got this AAA service, but even there, you're essentially calling a stranger that you've never met. And that element of trust is very difficult to arrive at when you're stranded and kind of helpless, even for something like a broken down car. And it's something that's almost universal, that all of us who drive have experienced this one time or another. Well, there were like three different people that tried to help her while she was trying to avoid calling me out of a staff meeting. But finally, I saw that I had missed her call. I called back. I said, I'm on my way. I've got a good staff. They've got it covered. And so by the time I get there, one of the people that was trying to help her got her car started. And so she called me and we agreed to meet at a car repair shop that he recommended. So this is stranger recommending stranger and levels of trust. But I decided to meet my wife there. And it was one of those situations that I think is common human experience, but very difficult to explain. And that is that within 3 minutes of having a conversation with the manager of this car repair shop, whose name is Mike, I knew. I just knew. I can't tell you how I knew. I knew I could trust him. I knew that I had found somebody that I could trust to take care of my wife's car. He had the knowledge, the confidence. Matter of fact, at one point I told him, I said, I can tell from your confidence and competence, even ignoring the gray hair, that you've been at this for a while. And he laughed and he said, I've been doing this since 1978. So seasoned experience. He overhears me explaining to my wife what I can because she's curious, she loves to learn. I told her what a novice auto mechanic would have done on a search and replace. And he smiles and tells me, nope, it's not that, it's this. And I smile at my wife and I said, he's not an amateur, he's a professional. And he was able to repair the car. A side note, because we're in the right information management business, ERP business, MRP business, there was a slight delay because his inventory control system wasn't quite accurate and he didn't have the battery we needed in stock, but he had the contacts. Here we go, supply chain relationship. He knew who had it in stock. Okay, let's go to logistics. So he had somebody with a car who could go down there and get the part and bring it back. And it's just like this whole tiny microcosm of what it means to run a business and run it well and establish trust with a brand new customer. And I told him before we left, we've lived here a year and I had not yet found an auto mechanic I trust, which is one of those things you got to find. And I said, now I found one. I know that I'm going back to Mike with my next repair. And so this kind of fed into a conversation that, anybody from your audience that also follows me on LinkedIn may stumble upon, this passionate debate between me and somebody I respect immensely, the Sam Gupta, but he just kind of tripped on one of my sore spots about exactly how important is profit in running a business compared to some of the things that are much less easily measured, like trust and loyalty and relationships with clients and suppliers and supply chain logistics. And here is a guy that's been fixing cars for 48 years. He doesn't have shareholders that are looking for quarterly return on investment. He's trying to meet payroll. He's trying to keep his business open. He's trying to keep his employees loyal, on staff, trained, right? I even thought about asking him, because of conversations we've had about, the gray beards, are you training somebody to take your place when you retire? Because I hope that I'm really hoping he doesn't retire. But all of those elements of running a good business and thriving in business had almost nothing to do with how much profit he made, how much markup. Like, just almost under his breath, he said, I'm not going to charge you for the diagnostics. I don't do that, right? It's just the cost of the battery and the 10 minutes of labor it took to install it. And that's the reason that the crisis became a wonderful outcome. I now have a car mechanic in town that I trust, and I would trust my wife to go to, and I believe he would treat her with respect and take care. I don't know how to put a price tag on that. It's worth much more than the battery. And so,
and the butterfly effect on what you just said, you would be talking about this experience because that's who we humans are. And this gentleman, Mike, is gaining customers who indirectly, through this experience, and who he has never met, never seen, never had to demonstrate anything. So it's the trust that he built with that simple interaction that helped us all get there. So as I was sharing my experience with you, where my new car, which went for a routine diagnostic, we ended up with a big bill of 10 grand, and a neighbor recommended that we get a second opinion, and the intuition said that as well. And Robbie, in our case, the trusted person who diagnosed the car and said, all you need is a wire or something, and he did it out of his kindness from his own inventory. And then we had to convince Robbie that he had saved us a lot of time and money, so we had to convince to pay him. But yeah, in both these cases, these two gentlemen, Mike and Robbie, have demonstrated something that we need in our industry, that is the overall focus on wealth, loyalty, trust, which is far more important than this quarterly returns and what are my shareholders going to think when I submit my results.
And I know that this is a very imperfect science. It's really more art than science. But one of the things that comes with age and maturity is an improving, never perfected, but an improving ability to detect the motives of somebody you're considering doing business with. And if it becomes clear that their motive is to get as much money out of you as they can by lying to you, fabricating, inflating, and let's not pretend it doesn't happen all day, every day, everywhere, or is the motive to help? And when the motive is to help and to serve and to provide something of value to customers and to build valuable relationship, that motive endures. And that motive will cement relationships not only for a lifetime, but in many cases for generations. People tell their children, this is where I take my cars. They've never treated me badly. And you build loyalty over time that will never show up on a balance sheet. Important part of what your company, what is your reputation worth?